Good morning, first graders. Last week we read two different versions of Cinderella. We read the James Marshall version and we read the Wicked Stepmother's version. Seriously, Cinderella was so annoying. And we had to listen to both and think about using what we know about Cinderella, using what we know about people and how they act and how they think. Which version did we believe? And you didn't all agree. Some people thought James Marshall was telling the truth, and some people thought the real version was the Wicked Stepmother's version, and some people thought that maybe both versions were true, but it just depended on what you knew and what you understood. So this week we're going to read James Marshall's The Three Little Pigs and the true story of the Three Little Pigs as told by the wolf. So we're going to start with that one today. The true story of the Three Little Pigs by A. Wolf. It's as told by John Cizeska and illustrated by Lane Smith. Let's see what the wolf has to say. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this big bad wolf thing got started, but it is all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. That means what you eat. Hey, it's not my fault that wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think that you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. He's really trying to convince us about what really happened. Way back once upon a time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold, and I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole entire house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in their right mind would build a house out of straw? Kind of an interesting point he's making. What do you think? So, of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. So I was just about to go home without my cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday. And that's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed. This sounds familiar. And I sneezed a great sneeze. So he's trying to say that he didn't really blow the house down. It was just a sneeze. Do you believe him? And you know what? That whole darn straw house fell down, and right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. What would you do? I was feeling a little bit better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next door neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house out of sticks. I rang the bell on the stick house. Nobody answered. I called. Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, Go away, wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. And when the dust cleared, there was a second little pig, dead as a doorknob. Wolf's honor. That means he promises. Are you believing him? What do you think? Now, you know that food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open. So I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house out of bricks. I knocked on the brick house, no answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that little porker answered? Get out of here, Wolf! Don't bother me again! So he's trying to make it seem like the little pig is not very nice. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me even one little cup. For my dear, sweet old granny's birthday, what a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. The third pig yelled, and your old granny can sit on a pin. Oh, this time the house did not fall down. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course, I was trying to break down the pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. The news reporters found out about the two pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting, so they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. They made me the big bad wolf, and that's it. The real story is I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar? That story was very different than the version that James Marshall told us. Which one do you think is real? In the folder in the listening center, there is a paper that you need to go and write. What do you think? Do you think that the big bad wolf is telling the truth? Or do you think that James Marshall is telling the truth? I want you to write what you think and why.